Hello and welcome back to the Wellbeing Workshop. Hi, Leah.
Hello, Adriana.
We are heading into the holidays.
Here we are.
You know, that song, it's the most wonderful time of the year. If you are my daughter and you are 6, that song is the truest song of all songs. But if you are not 6 years old, sometimes the holidays can feel less awesome. Sometimes great.
I would say they're a total mix for me. I really
Such
do
a
find
mix.
it to be the most awesome time of the year.
Yeah.
And hard.
And hard. And part of what I think is a little problem here, and thanks ancestors, is like the intense amount of them that happen from here to the end of the year. Like, and the beginning of the year, like, why do we have to have them all happening all at the same time? Just back to back to back to back. It is a surefire way to feel overwhelmed and stressed out and full of joy.
I know.
Hot chocolate.
I know.
All
but you're
things.
right. It is. It's like we just pack them in here.
We just packing them in. So in honor of heading into the holiday season, we today are going to talk about boundaries and expectations. Because back when we were talking about kind of the scope of our, fall and winter podcast season, one of the things that came up really clearly for both of us, like way back in the summer, was, you know what would be really cool? Let's talk about how we can be aware of some personal boundaries and family structure stuff. And can we find some conversation to bring some more ease to this time?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
Yeah. So why don't we jump in by giving a little definition of boundaries that we like?
Sure. So, I mean, my favorite definition really comes from Brené Brown, and she really talks about boundaries being clear in your needs, and that being clear is kind. Yeah. So I always felt uncomfortable kind of stating my needs before, but I found that actually kind of being clear and direct and not putting a lot of story around it is the kindest way. And I really like that she defines boundaries as they're for you. Like boundaries are about you. They're not about controlling another person. They're not about changing another person. They're really about figuring out what is okay for you and not okay for you. And if something gets crossed, what you will do about it. Like, it's not about making somebody else wrong. It's not about making somebody else feel bad. It's about kind of like knowing where she always talks about like, where are your edges? Like, where do I end? And where, and I like boundaries are not walls, right? They're movable, they're flexible, they can change. But that they do help us kind of define ourselves, our needs, what's working for us, or what we need support in terms of caring for ourselves.
Yeah. And I love that definition too, because it's not just then you can think of it not just as like self-care or something rigid. Not that self-care is rigid, but also care for the community. It's like when we set clear boundaries, we are being kind. We are also teaching people around us how to support us or how to help us feel good in this time. Even if it's not like, I am going to sit down and teach you how to support me, but just by showing up and saying like, this is what's important for me, or this is what I need, can demonstrate to other people like how to help us or how to show up for us. And then if you're a person who is raising children, it also, I think, is a really nice way of teaching them what holding strong but compassionate and thoughtful boundaries are as well. Yeah, because I think during this time of year, it's not just, maybe we should actually, maybe I jumped in this conversation backwards, because sometimes I think the expectations
Yeah, I was gonna just
of the time
yeah, it's the
are what
expectation.
requires the boundaries to be
Yeah,
set in the first place, right? So let's talk about expectations, right? So expectations are either from yourself, from others,
Mhm.
or I sometimes experience this feeling of expectations from history or like tradition, that like we in our family, we always do X. And then it's like, oh, okay, I have to do X. Like sometimes I want to do X and sometimes X like doesn't fit in this year. But because it's a tradition or because it's what our family always does, there's the expectation that we're going to do that this year anyway, even if it doesn't actually fit in with where we are or how things are going. Although to be fair, I do think, pandemic silver lining was like, it kind of, there were some things that I think, we couldn't do. And that was mostly terrible and awful. But for some people, I think it released that like, well, every single year, in order for it to feel like, insert
Truth.
holiday here, in order for it to feel like Christmas, we have to go to cousin John's annual Christmas Eve party.
Right.
Where we fly and we have to stay, like all this stuff, because that's the thing that makes it feel like Christmas. And it's like, well, actually, we couldn't go to Uncle John's. And turns out December 25th still came along.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have these like expectations of ourselves, of that others kind of bring to us, and then of our history about like, yeah, about
And
what we're going to show up
I am
for.
the notorious overscheduler in our house.
Yes.
So it is often the like getting real, like, okay, Leah, are we really going to be able to do that many parties, that activity, go get that picture taken, also get such and such baked, and go, and just being a little bit more realistic with what's possible in a day. And I'm getting better, but I am often the one that like, let's get a little bit more kind of realistic in what's actually possible in a weekend or in a month, or
yeah,
I want to do all the things.
yeah, I want to do all the things too. And then you get so tired and you're like, oh, darn it. Like, I wasn't able to like be super present because Thanksgiving is a big one, I think, for a lot of people who are the hosting folks. Like, you prep and you cook and you cook and you cook and you prep and you cook and you cook. And then people show up at your house and you're like too exhausted to enjoy all of the fruits of your labor, literally. Right. So again, that's another place of like, okay, what are the expectations around this holiday, both that I am putting on it and also that others are expecting, and how do I set some clear boundaries or create some structure that will allow me to be present in these events and truly be joyful, or truly be, grounded and feel good about being there.
We're big on, we host Thanksgiving, but I'm a potluck person.
So you delegate.
So we delegate. So a couple weeks before, we're doing the turkey and the pies. My husband is the super pie maker.
Oh, nice.
He does pies for Thanksgiving, and we celebrate Christmas in our house. So for Christmas also. But then we're divvying up. And now we've been doing this with both of our families actually come together for Thanksgiving. Kind of people know what they're making. Like my mom has an appetizer and it's now expected, well, not expected, but everybody loves it. And everybody hopes that, my mom's bringing the wontons
Ooh.
to Thanksgiving, both sides of the family. So we've kind of gotten into our groove. But yeah, I think that's something I really have noticed in developing my mindfulness practice, like you're talking about, that if we're so consumed beforehand or in the creating the experiences, right? Because I think so much of the holiday
Mhm.
time, again, whatever holiday or tradition that you are participating in or planning, there's like this desire to make it magical. There's this desire to create a memory or something for yourself or those around you. And if we forget to be there,
Mhm.
then if our feet aren't in the spot where we are, because there's been so much kind of doing beforehand, or maybe not some of those clear expectations or boundaries or structure. I like that word, even just like kind of
Yeah.
thinking about how it might go. Just even that little bit of pre-planning, like, okay, we know this day is coming up. Like, what can we do to set that day up for success so everybody can have a joyful
Yeah.
experience?
And I think that, me, I love a structure. I love a structure. It's my jam, team. So I love the idea of really, setting the calendar, sitting down in the front of the calendar and saying like, okay, like this is what's coming up, and for me, visually getting a paper calendar and writing stuff on that paper calendar and then looking at it being like, wow, there's a lot of things on this calendar, or like, like that there are no days between, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving. If I don't save Wednesday, like like just being aware in advance of the things that are coming can really help with that. And it's so stupid. I can't, like, how simple that is. But
No,
even
that's
in
so
so far
huge.
as
That's been huge for me. Like, just even thinking, I mean, I'm trying to do the seasonally planning now, but I've been doing the monthly planning, and it's so huge just to like even be like, oh, that birthday, you're like, my gosh, a birthday at the end of November is like,
I know.
or in December, you're like, oh gosh, we got to plan for that, all those things. So
Yeah.
just being aware is really helped me with the expectation setting and the giving myself space and time to do those things.
Yeah. And also there's a sort of consumer piece of this, right? Where, you know, so my daughter, it's very interesting. I've gotten a little bit of, she doesn't know she's giving me this feedback, but some interesting feedback recently. The other morning, it was kind of chilly and a little bit quiet Saturday morning. And we were downstairs and we were reading on the couch. She was reading her book and I was reading my book. And she was like, can we make some hot chocolate? I was like, yeah, sure. And so I brought her, we made the hot chocolate, and she was like, it feels like Christmas morning. And I was like, wow, she did, like, it wasn't like, oh, there's presents and there's a tree and there's family over and like da da da, that made her think it felt like Christmas morning. It was just like being together on the couch drinking hot chocolate and kind of snuggling was like, felt like Christmas morning. I was like, oh, this is great news.
This is great news.
I can do that. But thinking about like, what is it that makes those holidays feel like something? Is it consumption of food, drink, gifts, purchasing stuff, or is it like time well spent and experiences? And and for every person that's going to be different, and there's no judgment if it is presents. Like, there are many people for whom like that's their favorite thing. My mother, oh my heavens, loves giving presents. She does it all. She loves
my husband too.
presents.
My husband loves giving presents.
Oh my gosh. She'll start Christmas shopping. I mean, if she sees something that she thinks is great and pretty, she'll buy it. It doesn't matter what month it is, and she'll put it in her closet. She just loves that is both giving and receiving is a huge love language for her, So again, there's no judgment around that, but just also being, I think for me, it's been really helpful to be mindful about what those holidays mean like, what are we, what is
What are
the,
you cultivating
what am I cultivating? That's a great word. What am I cultivating?
from your tradition, from your experience,
Yeah.
from your
Yeah.